Hello. In this video, we are going to continue to develop our sample site. And what it was doing was, the goal was to end up having a site that displays the HIV infection rates compared proportionally by country. So at the end of stage 4, we ended up being able to display 3 countries. And the real focus here was understanding how to take the data from the JSON and then use it to set the width of these divs to some pixel length that is proportional. So we figured out the largest of our 3 was Argentina with 120,000, and then we set that as the width of the screen, and then we set the actual number of pixels proportional to that. But what we want is we want to see every country. And to do that, we need to use a structure called a loop. And broadly speaking, there are 2 classifications of loops. There are what are called counted loops and conditional loops. If you take a look at the side here, I'll have some theory kind of up and running shortly about each of those. But generally speaking, counted loops and conditional loops are completely interchangeable. But picking the right one, so to speak, will make your coding easier. So the rule is generally if you know in advance how many times a loop is going to run before entering the loop, a counted loop is your better choice. And a for loop is an example of a counted loop that exists in pretty much all programming languages. The syntax might change slightly, but it is an important structure that you need to know as a programmer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this code here, and I'm going to come over back into my terminal, which I've opened up below, or my console, pardon me, and I'm going to paste that, and I'll press enter. And what we see is it prints out 0, 1, 2, 3. So the question is, why does that happen? So what happens is when the program executes this, I like to think of this as the count, the check, and the change. So what happens is we reach here and the count gets set to 0. And then it does the check. Is 0 less than 4? And that's true, so it enters the loop. And the loop prints out I. And I is 0, so we get 0 printed to the console. Then when we reach the bottom of the loop, the change is applied. So I becomes 1. And then we check again. Is 1 less than 4? That's true, so it comes back up to the top, runs through the code, prints out 1. There's our 1. Then I becomes 2. Is 2 less than 4? Yes. It comes back up to the top, runs through the code, prints out 2. There's our 2. I becomes 3. Is 3 less than 4? Yes. It comes back up to the top, runs the loop, prints out 3. There's our 3. And then the change was applied again, and we get 4. But now, 4 less than 4 is false, in which case it just continues on in the code. For our case, there's nothing after this. So one way that we like to visualize this is with what's called a table, a trace table. And so this is one way to visualize this loop here. So here's our count, here's our check, and then we know the change is increased by 1 each time. So I is 0 less than 4, true, we run the loop. And the loop just prints out 0, pardon me. Then we change, and I becomes 1. Is 1 less than 4? True, we run the loop. I becomes 2. Is 2 less than 4? True, we run the loop. I becomes 3. Is 3 less than 4? True, we run the loop. And then finally we increment to 4, and this is where the condition or the check fails, and we exit the loop. So the first thing you want to kind of become comfortable with is figuring out how to change the loop parameters so that you can print out all the different values. So for example, if I wanted to print out 1 to 100, I would come in here. Let's just clear the terminal in here. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to say for I equals, and we want to print from 1 to 100, so the count's going to start at 1. I is less than. So we want to say 101 here because we want to reach 100, and I is equal to I plus 1. Open a brace, console.log, I, close my brace, enter, and there's my numbers from 1 to 100. Now, you'll notice something here. Students will often say, well, if I want to go to 100, I could do I is less than or equal to 100. And that's perfectly fine. But my advice is that stick with this format where you're actually going to say less than and then go one larger than your number. You'll find a lot of times we apply loops to strings and lists, and this is the general format that you see people use. So let's do another one. We won't do them all. Let's do this one here. Actually, no, let's do this one here. This one looks good. So we can see that we want to start at negative 48. And then what's our change? To go from negative 48 to negative 45, I'm going to increase by 3. So my change is 3. And then I want to reach negative 39. So I'm going to come in here. So I is going to start at, and we said negative 48. So I'm going to put negative 48. I is less than, let's put negative 39 here and see what happens. And I is equal to I plus 3. So notice here I get negative 48, negative 45, negative 42, negative 48, negative 45, negative 42. But what I didn't get is a negative 39. And that's because I need to actually reach the negative 39. So a couple solutions here. I could say negative 38, and then I reach it. In theory, because the change is plus 3, I could say negative 37, and it would still work. And this is the essential structure to a loop structure. We think of this idea of count, check, change. In fact, I'm going to do one more here. So let's come in here. Let's do this one. Negative 5, negative 3, negative 1, 1, 3, 5. So I see that I'm incrementing by 2 each time. And I want to start at negative 5. So we're going to come in here. Let's just clear our terminal again, or our console. For I is equal to negative 5, I is less than 6, I is equal to I plus 2. Open a brace, console.log, I. Close our brace, and there we go. This relatively simple example, once you get it, is really important that you get comfortable with this, because we're going to apply this to our website. However, this structure is so important in a lot of computer science. And it's really important you get comfortable with writing basic for loops. So let's do one more thing, and then maybe we'll end here and I'll add a little button on my site. So a really common thing is I might want to find the sum. So let's imagine that we want to find the sum of all the values from 0 to 5. So what I could do here is I could set the sum variable to 0. I write my loop from 0 to 5. But if I want to reach 5, I'm going to go 0 to 6. I is less than 6. And then what I can do is I can say sum equals sum plus 1. Or so we could write plus I. Now notice here how I have the console.log here. If we have the console.log inside the loop, it's going to print it out every time. So let's just take this for a second and let's just see what happens. I'm going to come into here. I'm going to clear this up. I'm going to paste that. And notice I get the log I. Let's clear this again. And let's log sum. So we see this loop's going to go from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So the sum is going to be 0, then 1, and then 1 plus 2 is 3. Then 3 plus 3 is 6. 6 plus 4 is 10. 10 plus 5 is 15. But if I just wanted to print out the sum once, again, let's clear this up. I would take this, because it's printing out the sum every time, I'm going to paste it. Oh, turns out the terminal actually prints it out for us. Let's just clear this right up again. For I equals 0, I is less than 6, I is equal to I plus 1. And then we're going to say, oh, sum equals 0. And then we're going to say sum is equal to sum plus I. This is a self-referencing assignment statement. We're going to close the brace. If I hit Shift-Enter, I can write a new line. I say console.log sum. And there's my 15. So this is the basic structure of a for loop. It's a really important structure. And in the next video, we're actually going to go and apply this to our website. I hope this video helped. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask.